Name, driver's license, identification. All right. Intimate partner violence, as well as intimate partner homicide, is surprisingly common based off of the research that I have conducted myself, and I am also surprised at how little this is spoken about in regards to theories in America. National Coalition Against Domestic Violence states that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. And intimate partner violence is sort of an umbrella in regards to intimate partner homicide, which falls underneath that umbrella. And based off of certain statistics and certain concepts, it helps law enforcement determine which theories to apply or which ideas can be used in order to come to a certain conclusion in regards to how to prevent or how to better understand certain actions that people would commit to and why these cases continue happening, especially within married couples, because marriage is supposed to be a sacred union between two people that truly love each other. And in this case, the abusers are typically men, and women are also usually victims, as stated by American Homicide. And so there comes in the question of how does this violence continue to occur, and should it be approached as a gender issue, whereas men are mainly the abusers? Should we focus on the men, or should we focus on the women as victims and help them? And there are certain hints that point towards these violences and these cases being cyclical patterns, as stated also in American Homicide and highlighted by Lenore Walker, 1977. There are 3 stages of abusive relationships: the violence, the apologies, and the tension, which, based off of also psychological research, can be pointed towards certain narcissistic or violent tendencies that continue to repeat and recycle over time in order to keep the victim in place in the home. And it can also be highlighted as the violence will gradually increase over time and leading it to almost like a pinnacle or a breaking point in which the actual physical homicide occurs. And there are many factors that can contribute to an increased risk in regards to homicide, which includes age difference. If the male, as highlighted in American Homicide, if the male is 16 years younger, that increases the risk. And if the female is 10 or more years younger, it can also increase the risk, because can also be a lack of emotional maturity or a sense of control and power that needs to be exerted over the victim. There are also socioeconomic factors as well as race, sexual orientation, and homosexuality cases, which vary as well in regards to results and how law enforcement approaches those cases. And the use of substances, which is a very common cause with drinking and arguing, can also potentially lead to a case occurring. It only escalates certain emotions, but it must also be noted that correlation is not equal to causation. So these factors can contribute, but that does not always mean that is the exact cause for the homicidal case. And so after touching on these various factors and how certain physical traits, emotional traits, life instances, and socioeconomic properties can influence the rates of intimate partner homicide, it is also equally important to recognize the certain theories that have been kind of formulated over the years in order to better understand the reasons why people go about and committing these horrible crimes against somebody they're supposed to love and care for. And so I am going to list and briefly describe these in order to provide extensive context. So there is battered woman syndrome, feminist theory, social learning theory, labeling in regards to psychology, the virtuous violence theory, economic deprivation, and then the general strain theory. So I'm going to quickly delve into the theories, summarize versions of the theories, and then expand on certain ones that have been used more frequently with investigators and psychologists, as well as the ones that also have a decent amount of evidence and documentation. So battered woman syndrome is described as when a woman experiences trauma as a result of certain physical, psychological, or emotional violences. And a very common or popular theoretical approach, as outlined by American Homicide is the feminist theory, and how most cultures and societies are patriarchal by nature, and so recognizing like certain gender roles and power imbalances in opposite sex relationships is important to kind of explain the power struggle between men and women and why that might result in certain homicidal cases, as well as there are certain biological factors with that, as it says here, theoretical examination. The social learning theory explains, as outlined by American Homicide, it explains acts, including violent ones, as role modeling the behavior of specific individuals. So that could be the result of abuse as a child, observing a spouse abuse in a childhood environment of both sets of offenders. So it could be, as quoted, a learned behavior or something that is kind of passed down, carried on. And then labeling is a look at whether it's something that is like seemingly intractable cycle of abuse in a victim remaining in a relationship may be in part a result of accepting her role as a victim. And so this is very traditional in households where, as I had previously mentioned, there is the cycle of abuse and the victim becomes used to being the victim as a label and kind of takes a part in that role, becomes comfortable in that position, and allows the violence to escalate because they are blinded by it. The virtuous violence theory is this theory that sees most violence as perpetrators acting in ways they believe are morally right. And this reminds me of scenarios where somebody is killing for good, quote unquote, as something where morally, as a general society, we view it as wrong, but to that specific person, they view it as something that's right. And that can be kind of dangerous because morals are something that a lot of people are afraid to touch on because it does vary from person to person. And then there is also economic deprivation and how economic issues and financial struggles greatly increase tensions in households. And if you've ever watched a show called First 48 or certain homicidal shows, it's a lot of them are based around collecting insurance money, collecting life insurance. Violence as a result of money is increasingly common. And the general strain theory, my whole homicide, is used to keep the wife under the husband's control. So there's a lot of it is based off of gender control. Gender continues to be resurfacing as a concept that is very important, as well as like gender dynamics, socioeconomical dynamics as well. And so to conclude this presentation about the various theories as well as approaches that psychologists and investigators use to help solve or better understand certain cases, it is very important to formulate these theories and do investigative research to cover these various topics in order to both prevent intimate partner homicide and intimate partner violence in the future, and to help create sustainable, long-lasting marriages for couples that wish to go on that path and create that union for themselves, and teach them how to better approach mental issues or arguments to prevent these instances from arising, as well as how to provide proper help for victims who need to break the cycle of violence. Thank you.